Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. You don't realize how quiet a house can get until you've been away from it for a week. I came back from a weekend-long rodeo event in El Paso, so from the drive, boots still dusty, expecting the usual. Melissa greeting me at the door in her robe, coffee reheating in the microwave, her questions bouncing one after the next about how many riders got bucked and if anyone broke anything important. But when I walked through the door, it didn't feel like home. It felt like a showroom. Lights off. Floors vacuumed. Not a single dish out of place. Melissa wasn't even home. Just a note on the counter. Working late, picking up extra shifts. Love you. That was her new favorite phrase lately. Extra shifts. She'd said it 3 times the week before I left. Once when she came home at 10:30 with perfect makeup. Again when she took a mysterious 3-hour lunch meeting, and most recently when she said we needed to spice things up financially. She'd smile when she said it, like she had a plan she was proud of. At first, I believed her. We lived in a small town where gossip traveled faster than weather warnings. Melissa worked as an office admin at a local construction firm. Her boss, Mr. Langston, was well-known, married, clean-shaven, always too generous with his jokes and attention. I'd met him once at a holiday party. He shook my hand too long and complimented Melissa's dress twice in the same breath. Still, I wasn't the jealous type. I'd always trusted Melissa. We'd been married 7 years. Bought this house together. Painted the kitchen that god-awful sage green she loved. We had plans, dreams. So when she mentioned getting creative with side hustles, I didn't question it. Until I checked our bank account. It was Monday morning. I just unloaded my duffel bag, fired up the laptop, and logged into our joint account to check if the hotel charges had cleared. That's when I saw it. A $400 Venmo payment labeled Private Performance. I stared at the screen. Melissa handled most of the finances, but we always shared everything. The account name, sending the money, hidden behind an anonymous username. The note? Way too specific to be misunderstood. My pulse started to rise. I clicked into the transaction and followed the rabbit hole. It led to a username tied to an email address that matched Langston's business contact. I didn't react immediately. I just stared at it, feeling something unravel in the pit of my stomach. She had always been good with words. But this wasn't just financial creativity. This was something else. When she came home that night, she was glowing. Makeup subtle, hair pinned back, wearing a soft gray sweater I'd never seen before. "Hey, cowboy," she said, dropping her purse on the kitchen chair. "Miss me?" I smiled. "Always." She came over, kissed my cheek, and told me dinner was already in the oven. Chicken casserole, her go-to when she wanted me comfortable. While she moved through the kitchen, I watched her closely. She was humming, light on her feet, like nothing was wrong. But I already knew. Something had shifted, and it wasn't just the bank account. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Melissa moved through the house like everything was normal, cleaning the counters with too much enthusiasm, folding my laundry before I had a chance to even touch it. She made dinner twice in a row and even packed my lunch once, like we were newlyweds again instead of people balancing between trust and something far less comfortable. I didn't bring up the Venmo charge. I didn't ask about Mr. Langston. I watched. I listened. Because I'd learned early in life, when something's wrong, people talk themselves into a corner if you give them enough space. On Thursday, she said she had a late work night. Again, I didn't react. Just kissed her forehead and said, "Don't wait up." She smiled. "You're the best." And she left in that same soft gray sweater she'd worn the night I got back. The one she never used to wear. The one that didn't feel like it belonged to her. When the door shut, I sat down at her desk. It wasn't locked. She didn't hide things in obvious ways. Melissa was smart, but her confidence always made her sloppy when she thought she had control. I clicked open her browser. Nothing incriminating. Just Pinterest boards and email tabs. But I dug a little deeper. There was one tab in private mode, still open. A webmail client. The name on the sender list didn't match anyone I knew. No subject lines. All coded phrases. But the timestamps were telling. Late nights. Lunch breaks. One message stood out. New content is killing it. Same time Friday. No names. No attachments. but enough to know this wasn't a one-time thing. I closed everything, didn't leave a trace. When she came home that night, she looked tired, but not the kind of tired that comes from paperwork. Her cheeks were flushed. She smelled like sandalwood, not the lavender lotion she usually kept in her purse. "Long day?" I asked. "The worst," she said, kicking off her shoes. "Langston had me running invoices until 8. I raised an eyebrow. "Langston? I thought you were handling admin stuff only." She froze for just a half second. Barely, but I saw it. Then she smiled. "He stretched thin this month." I offered to help. "Overtime, pay isn't bad either." I nodded slowly. "Always looking out for us." She leaned in, kissed my neck. "That's what a good wife does, right?" I smiled. "Right." But I didn't sleep well that night. The next morning, I checked her phone while she was in the shower. It was locked. New passcode. Changed from the one we'd both shared since last year. When I asked about it later, she shrugged. IT from work said we should start rotating them every few months. "You can have it, though, don't worry." I took it, smiled, pretended like I still trusted her. That afternoon, I met up with my cousin Dave at the feed store. He worked tech for a security firm on the side. I bought him a coffee and asked about cloud backups, remote syncs, and if it was possible to clone a phone's storage into a private server. He raised an eyebrow. "Why? You trying to catch someone?" "Just being cautious," I said. He smirked. "Paranoia and passwords go hand in hand, man." 2 hours later, he texted me a link. "Try this. Dummy proof." I waited until Melissa fell asleep that night, then installed the tracker on her iPad. The sync began pulling cloud data. Slow, methodical, silent. I didn't look at it right away. I wanted the whole puzzle, not just a few pieces. And still, I didn't confront her. Instead, I smiled across the breakfast table, took out the trash, let her believe I was the same old Brad. The Brad who didn't notice anything. The Brad who thought extra shifts were real. The Brad who still believed. She had no idea. But the truth? It was already downloading. 2 days passed before I found it. I wasn't looking, not exactly, but the clue came to me all the same. Melissa had left early that Saturday morning, claiming she needed to meet a client for a paperwork drop-off. She wore heels, pointed, black, the kind she said hurt too much to use anymore unless the occasion really called for it. She took extra time on her hair, more than she did when we had dinner with friends. She said she might stop at the boutique afterward, asked if I needed anything. I said I was good, then waited until her car turned the corner before stepping into motion. She'd left her closet door open. Normally, she was compulsive about closing it. Something about dust getting on her good jackets. That morning, it hung open just enough to catch a glimpse of the top shelf, where she stored her seasonal handbags and gift boxes. I pulled the step stool from the laundry room and climbed up, feeling stupid and sharp at the same time. There it was. A navy blue gift bag, wrapped with silver tissue, shoved behind an old laptop case. No tag, no receipt. I opened it slowly. Inside, a cologne bottle. Sleek, expensive, the kind advertised with black and white commercials and brooding men on yachts. It wasn't mine. She knew I didn't wear cologne, never liked the smell, gave me headaches. But this wasn't bought for me. I knew that instantly. The scent hit me before I even sprayed it. Woody, musky, bold. Too bold. I turned the bottle over. Small sticker at the bottom. For VIP members, limited series. VIP. The word clung to my skull like a fly. So this was a gift. A private gift. For someone exclusive. Someone who'd clearly earned her attention beyond paperwork. My hand started to tremble. Not with rage. Not yet, but with something deeper. Humiliation. Maybe. Or the beginning of clarity. I sat down on the bed and stared at the bottle for a few minutes. Then I stood up, walked to the garage, unscrewed the top of the cologne bottle, and poured half of it into an old jar of motor oil. Just enough to change the scent subtly, ruin the base notes. I added a splash of vinegar, shook it gently, then resealed it and wiped the glass clean. The damage wouldn't show until it hit the skin. When I put the bottle back into the gift bag, I tucked a small note in with it. Nothing dramatic. Just a blank slip of paper, folded twice, that I knew would confuse her. She'd wonder if she left a message and forgot. Or worse, if someone else had. I returned the bag exactly where I found it. Then I waited. That evening, Melissa returned home humming. A shopping bag in one hand, bottle of wine in the other. Thought we could do something nice tonight, she said. You feel like staying in? Sure, I replied, watching her carefully. She moved through the kitchen like nothing had changed, like she wasn't hiding something behind navy paper and citrus wood deception. She poured us both a glass and kicked her shoes off like she was tired from a long, boring day. I played along. We watched a movie. She curled up next to me, her breath soft against my shoulder. I didn't ask about the cologne, didn't mention the gift bag. She didn't bring it up either. And that silence? It told me everything. Because if she'd bought something innocent, something for her dad, or a friend, or even a work raffle, she'd have mentioned it. She would have brought it out, proudly announced it, said something offhand. But she didn't. She tucked it away. She protected it. And that made it real. Later that night, while she was brushing her teeth, I opened the Cloud Sync folder Dave had helped me rig up. Dozens of files, photo thumbnails, clips, file names coded with strange numbers, timestamps, and phrases like afternoon rush and VIP bonus 3. I didn't click. Not yet. I wanted everything. I wanted the full truth. And then I'd decide what to do with it. By Tuesday, my thoughts had spiraled into overdrive. I'd barely scratched the surface of what was hiding in that cloud folder. I hadn't opened any of the files, not yet. Part of me was stalling, hoping the evidence wasn't what I suspected. The rest of me wanted to catch her red-handed without relying on blurry thumbnails and encoded file names. I needed something physical, undeniable. I wanted to see it, hear it, feel the betrayal like a slap across the jaw, not a slow poison. But my gut still told me I wasn't seeing the whole picture. And then Darren happened. Darren was a gym manager down the road, an old classmate of Melissa's. I'd run into him at the hardware store just before noon. We chatted briefly, nothing serious, just neighborhood stuff. But right as we were parting ways, he dropped something that twisted my attention hard. Saw Melissa the other day, he said. Didn't know she was training with us now. I blinked. Training? Yeah, she stopped by for a tour and mentioned she was trying to get back into a routine. Even asked about our private rooms, for focus workouts. Focus workouts? I smiled, kept my voice neutral. No kidding. Yeah, good on her. Told her to give me a call if she wanted a full plan. We said our goodbyes, and I walked back to the truck with my mind racing. Melissa hadn't said a word about joining a gym. In fact, she told me last week that her schedule was too tight for workouts. Said she'd just try walking more. But a private room? Suddenly, the gym became a new possibility. That afternoon, while she was at work, I drove over to the gym. Parked 2 lots over. Sat in my truck with a hat pulled low. I waited. Watched. Cars came and went. Members filtered in and out. Around 3:15, I saw her car, same red compact, the one with the scratch on the passenger side she never bothered to fix. She pulled in, parked, and walked inside. Kimpe over her shoulder. Ponytail up. 10 minutes later, Darren stepped outside with another employee. They chatted by the entrance. I saw him glance back inside once, but not with urgency, more like someone double-checking a detail. I waited 40 minutes. When Melissa came out, she looked normal. Not flustered. Not rushed. Her clothes were slightly damp from sweat. She stopped to chat with Darren, laughed at something he said, then waved and got at her car. I followed her home, 2 cars behind. She walked in, greeted me with a smile. Long day, she said, but I'm proud of myself. Got through a whole hour. I played it cool. What hour? She hesitated, then pulled out a gym flyer. I joined the one near Broad Street. Figured I'd surprise you after I got a few days in. I took the flyer, pretending to read. Darren's still running that place? She nodded, surprised. Yeah, he remembered me, which was weird. So you just decided now to join? She tilted her head. Kinda. I've been feeling off lately. Thought working out might help. I nodded slowly. Well, good on you. That night, I sat with the evidence folder open, fingers hovering over the first video. But I didn't play it. Not yet. The thing was, I didn't think Darren was the guy. She seemed relaxed around him. Casual. No secret smiles, no overcompensating laughter. No tensión. Whatever she was hiding, it wasn't him. So what was the gym about? A decoy? An escape? Or had I jumped to conclusions? I almost asked her straight out. Almost. But I stopped myself. Because what if I accused the wrong man? What if I cornered her too soon and she buried everything before I had real proof? I closed the folder again, hands tighter than I meant them to be. Melissa was too clever to fall into my trap just yet, and I wasn't going to waste a moment by lunging early. Instead, I waited, and the waiting? It only sharpened my focus. The gym didn't go away. Melissa went 3 times that week, always after work, always claiming she needed to clear her head. She'd come home flushed, towel in hand, talking about new stretches and how sore she was in all the right places. She'd pull protein bars from her bag like a prop and show me videos on her phone of workout influencers she'd supposedly started following. At face value, it looked convincing. The schedule matched. Her mood lightened. But I couldn't shake the feeling it was all a setup, an elaborate, well-rehearsed distraction. Something was still off. Then came a Friday night shift. She came home late. Too late. After 10, hair still damp, but not from sweat. I was sitting in the living room when she walked in. She smiled, surprised I was still up. "Didn't think you'd wait up," she said, dropping her bag. "Just watching the game?" I lied, muting the screen. "How was it?" She walked to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water. "Long Langston had me doing back-to-back reports. Some audit is coming up, and everything's a mess." "Langston keeping you late a lot lately?" She sipped her water without facing me. "He trusts me with details. You know that." I said. "He ever thank you for the help?" She turned, puzzled. "What?" "Just wondering if he appreciates how hard you work." Her expression shifted, just for a second, like a misstep in a dance. Then she smiled. "He's just a boss, Brad. Not my best friend. I work. He signs the checks." "That's it." I nodded. "Right." She walked past me and kissed my temple. "You're cute when you get all protective." I didn't say anything, just watched her climb the stairs and disappear into the bathroom. The door shut. The lock clicked. I grabbed her gym bag for where she dropped it. Inside, the usual. Towel, deodorant, protein bar, but no gym shoes, no used water bottle, no wrist wrap she always wore during her push-up routine. I pulled out the towel. Dry. I sat there for a long time, towel in one hand, heart hardening with every second. The next day, I made a quiet decision. I opened the cloud folder. This time I clicked. The first video opened in a private office, dim lighting, narrow desk, filing cabinets lining the walls. There she was, Melissa, in the same blouse she'd worn the week before. I didn't need to see faces to know who else was in the room. I recognized his watch, the corner of his wedding ring, the damn coffee mug on his desk. Langston, no doubt now. I closed the video. Didn't finish it. Didn't need to. I had enough. But instead of confrontation, I looked at the timestamps. 3 videos that week, all labeled with quiet terms: VIP 1, Extra Monday, Red Desk. I scanned the metadata. Uploaded automatically. Synced from her phone, then deleted locally. But not before the cloud caught them. Smart, but not smart enough. Later that afternoon, Melissa was folding laundry when I asked, "You think we're doing okay financially?" She looked up surprised. "I think we're surviving." "Why?" "Just wondering. You talked about spicing things up financially a few weeks ago." "Oh." She hesitated, then nodded. "I'm gonna try new budgeting. Maybe learning to invest." "Why?" "No reason," I said. "Just curious." She turned away. Didn't answer. But that single pause told me more than anything. The lie was still alive. But now I knew where it slept. And who else had a key? I didn't talk to her much that Sunday. Melissa spent the morning out running errands, and I didn't bother asking where. She left in jeans and a new top I hadn't seen before, the kind with those subtle back cuts she used to avoid because she thought they made her look too dressed up for daytime. Her hair was curled. Light makeup. "Just a quick trip," she said. "Groceries, maybe a coffee." I just nodded and handed her the keys. She kissed my cheek, cheerful. Too cheerful. Then drove off like it was just another weekend. I waited 5 minutes before logging into the cloud again. New files had synced, photos this time. 2 from Saturday. One labeled reception room. Another tag with a string of numbers I didn't recognize. I clicked on the first. Her in the mirror, posing, smiling like she was about to walk into something she didn't have to lie about. But I knew better now. Knew that smile was rehearsed, perfected for a camera, not for me. The second image was worse. A A still from a dim-lit video. Two blurred figures. Langston's office again. That same desk. Her wristwatch visible. The one I got her for our 4th anniversary. I stared at it. Felt nothing. Not rage. Not grief. Just resolve. I opened a new folder on my laptop. Titled it Exit Plan. Into it, I dragged the 3 most damning videos. Then I added screenshots. Timelines. Copies of every Venmo transaction under the private performance tag. I wasn't collecting anymore. I was curating. That afternoon, she came home with a bag of groceries and a caramel latte in her hand. "Want to grill tonight?" she asked. "Feels like that kind of Sunday." "Sure," I said. "I'll clean up the pit." While she prepped vegetables, I opened the bank app on my phone and transferred our savings into a new account I'd quietly opened under my name last week. Left just enough in the joint to keep up appearances. She didn't notice, didn't ask, didn't sense a thing. And that was the part that stuck with me. She wasn't afraid because she thought I'd never find out. Or worse, she thought if I did, I'd forgive her. That evening, while the steak seared, she wrapped her arms around me from behind and said, "We should take a trip this summer. Just us." I turned, firelight catching her face. "Where?" "I don't know. Maybe the coast. Somewhere quiet." I nodded. "Yeah, quiet sounds nice." She smiled, leaned into me, completely unaware that her own betrayal had already begun to unravel in places she couldn't see. That night, I created a new email address. No name attached, just a burner inbox. I uploaded the first video and clipped it, blurred the faces, masked the voices, cut the audio at just the right spots. It was surgical, controlled. Then I built a new web page using a free host. Named it Suburban Secrets. Minimalist layout. Black background. One header. What happens in the office doesn't always stay there. I embedded the video. Let the views climb. Didn't share the link yet. Just watch the counter tick up. She had no idea. And I was just getting started. Wednesday was the day I made my move. Not loud. Not violent. Just quiet. Certain and calculated. She told me she had an evening shift at the office. "Langston's got me reworking the client folders," she said, sipping coffee like it was just another story from her little playbook of lies. "It'll be a late one, so don't wait up." She didn't realize how often she recycled that phrase, like she was auditioning for a part in a life she'd already replaced. I smiled, told her to be safe. "Text me if it runs too late," I said, watching her toss a charger into her purse and head out like everything in our life wasn't burning behind her. This time I followed her. I'd borrowed my buddy Trevor's truck 2 days earlier. Gray, dented, with an old cattle ranch sticker on the back window. Nothing that would stand out. I waited 3 blocks over, engine off, watching our house until her car rolled out at 6:23 p.m. I kept a slow distance, 3 turns behind, then looped the back road toward her office. She didn't go straight there. She detoured. Starbucks first, then circled the block twice, testing for a tail. Smart. Too bad she wasn't smart enough. I watched her park behind the building, in that back lot only staff used. I killed my lights, eased to the edge, and waited. She got out, straightened her skirt, and walked toward the side entrance, not the front. The side was used for after-hours access. No cameras, no visitor logs. I got out 5 minutes later and crept behind the dumpster, keeping to the shadows. The lights inside were dim. Most of the office was dark, except one room, Langston's. I moved closer, just far enough to see the glow of a monitor through the blinds and the outline of 2 figures, one seated, one standing. Her shape was unmistakable. She leaned over him, arm resting on the desk. I saw him reach up, hands sliding behind her back. The angle shifted. She stepped around. He stood. They didn't talk. At least, not like co-workers. I didn't watch long. I didn't need to. I already had copies of what came next. I slipped away as quietly as I'd come. Back in the truck, I checked my site. Suburban Secrets had passed 3,000 views. I uploaded the second clip, again blurred and cropped. But this time I didn't stop there. I sent an anonymous email to Langston's wife. Subject line, "You deserve the truth." No message, just a link. Then I waited. 2 hours later, Melissa came home, hair tousled, cheeks flushed. She'd thrown on her hoodie, probably to hide whatever perfume or marks might have lingered. She didn't say much, just set her purse down, kicked off her shoes, and asked, "Still up?" "Couldn't sleep," I said from the couch. She smiled softly. "Want me to make tea?" "Sure." She moved into the kitchen, boiling water like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just walked out of another man's office. Like she hadn't lied to my face for weeks. I watched her hands. Steady, comfortable, completely unaware that her world was about to change. She brought me the cup and sat beside me, her head on my shoulder. Her phone buzzed once, twice. She silenced it. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. Better than ever. She leaned closer, eyes closing. I stayed still. Not out of love. Not out of weakness. Out of strategy. Because you don't end something this rotten with shouting. You end it with proof. And when the fire starts, you make sure everyone knows exactly who lit the match. The morning after she brewed me that tea like nothing had cracked, Langston's wife filed for divorce. I knew because someone leaked the news to the county courthouse Facebook group before noon. A string of vague comments exploded into accusations within an hour. "Heard about Langston? That admin girl must have known." Another one bites the dust. I didn't post. I didn't need to. I just watched it unravel. My inbox on Suburban Secrets tripled in traffic overnight. New followers. New whispers. People begging for more clips. Gossip always had an appetite, and I was feeding it. Melissa didn't suspect a thing. That Saturday, she suggested we go out for dinner. "Things have been weird lately," she said. "Feels like we haven't connected." I smiled. "Sure, let's fix that." We went to a quiet steakhouse on the edge of town. She dressed up for it. Tight dress, hair curled, lipstick carefully applied. I watched her across the table, wondering if she realized the facade was slipping. Maybe not yet. She talked about wanting to take a weekend off in July, maybe get a cabin. "Somewhere without phones," she said. "I just want us back. Us." She said it like the words still meant something. I raised my glass and toasted her. To new beginnings. She clinked without hesitation. By Sunday, Langston had resigned. No press. Just a sudden email sent to all company staff. Effective immediately. I'm stepping down to focus on personal matters. Melissa read it aloud from her phone, frowning. Weird, right? He didn't say anything Friday. Maybe something came up. I offered. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, hope he's okay." I nodded too. That evening, I posted the third video. This time, I didn't blur the faces. Just silhouettes. Enough to be seen if you knew what you were looking for. Melissa was front and center. But the audio was disabled. No voices. Just muffled clicks. The kind that let people imagine what they couldn't hear. It exploded. 2,000 shares in 6 hours. Local forums lit up with speculation. Anonymous users started guessing names. Some right, some off the mark, but all too close to comfort. By Monday morning, her inbox must have caught fire. When she came downstairs, she looked pale, distracted. "Something weird is happening," she said, pouring coffee without her usual pep. "There's this website. Someone sent me the link anonymously." I looked up. "What kind of site?" She hesitated. "It's bad. Like, someone's leaking private videos. Not just of me. Of other women, too." "You're in them." Her eyes flicked up. "No, I mean, I can't tell. It's blurry." "You sure?" She nodded too fast. "Yeah, but the timing's awful. Everyone at work is acting weird. The office is panicking. Langston's email. Maybe people think it's connected." She sipped her coffee and looked out the window. "Do you think someone's targeting our company?" "I think someone's exposing the truth," I said, staring straight through her. She didn't respond. Just stood there, still holding the mug, as if her world had tilted slightly and she couldn't find footing. I waited one more day. Then I filed the LLC paperwork for my new venture, the VIP room, bar and lounge, discreet location, sleek branding, funded entirely by ad revenue from the site she didn't know I ran. The irony wrote itself. She came home Wednesday in tears. "They're letting me go," she whispered. "Effective immediately." "Why?" "No explanation. Just optics." I handed her a drink and sat across from her. She wiped her eyes. "I don't know what's happening." "You sure?" She blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" I just shrugged. "You said things felt weird. Maybe they're just catching up." And in that moment, She looked like she finally understood that whatever she had built behind my back, I'd torn it down without raising my voice. It took 3 days for her to fully unravel. After the firing came the calls, first from coworkers, then from concerned friends, all pretending they didn't already know what she'd done. Melissa stopped answering her phone. She unplugged the Wi-Fi once, claiming we needed to be offline, but I watched her pace the kitchen in circles, clutching her cell like it was the only lifeline she had left. She barely slept, barely ate. Every time a notification pinged, she jumped. By Friday, she broke. We were sitting in silence, the kind that settles into the walls and makes the air feel heavier. She set her glass down harder than she meant to, looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. "Did you do this?" she asked. I didn't even blink. "Do what?" Her voice cracked. "The videos. That site. The leaks. All of it." I tilted my head. "Why would I do that?" "Because you knew," she said, trembling. "You knew something. I can see it in your eyes. You've known for weeks." I leaned back, arms crossed. "Tell me what I would have known." She stared at me, jaw tightening, but no words came. Just more silence. "I didn't tell anyone anything," I said slowly. "But if something's out there, maybe it was meant to be." Her breath caught. "You just gonna let me drown?" I didn't answer. She stood desperate now. "I made a mistake. I was trying to help. With money. I thought I could control it. I thought it wouldn't go too far. Posting private content online and sleeping with your married boss isn't exactly dipping a toe in," I said calmly. Her face went red. "You saw it all." I nodded. From the beginning, tears spilled down her cheeks. Her body, sagging like the truth, had finally crushed the last lie she was holding on to. "Then why didn't you stop me?" I stood up, slow and deliberate. "Because you wanted to be watched, Melissa. I just made sure someone was." She broke then, fell into the chair and covered her face, sobbing hard enough that her shoulders shook. "You don't understand. I felt invisible. Boring. I was tired of being safe. You wanted danger? You got it. You wanted attention? You're famous now. You wanted out? Consider this your exit." She looked up, eyes raw. "Please. We can still fix this. We can move away. Start over. You haven't filed anything, have you?" "I haven't filed for divorce," I said. "Not yet." Her breath hitched. "Then there's a chance." I shook my head. "No. It means I'm letting you go at my pace, not yours." She stood again, hands trembling. "I'll go to therapy. I'll delete everything. I'll tell people the truth. Just don't leave me like this." "You left me months ago," I said. "You just kept showing up like nothing changed." "I didn't love him," she whispered. "You loved the attention." She didn't deny it. I grabbed the folder from the desk. Our paperwork, neatly prepped, name already removed from our joint account. "You'll be served next week. You'll keep the car. I'll keep the house." She stared at the folder like it was a coffin. "Brad, please. This isn't you." I walked to the door, opened it wide. "You're right," I said. "It's who you made me." She stood frozen. "You're really not going to fight for us?" I looked at her one last time. "There's no us. There's just the pieces I picked up when you weren't looking." She didn't speak, didn't move. So I said it for her. "Goodbye, Melissa." And I closed the door behind her. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.